It is 7 o'clock in the morning and I am embarking on about a 2-week trip with the Kimbo and the Tacoma out to Lake Tahoe from Denver, Colorado. It's about a 16-hour drive and I'm going to break it up into a few days because I don't have to be there until the weekend, really. My first stopping point for the day will probably be about 500 miles from here in Salt Lake City, Utah, and I hopped on Onyx Off-Road to check my local camp spots and everything that I've saved from the past, and it seems like almost every single trail and camp spot that I know of is seasonally closed right now. So I expanded my horizons and started looking for some new spots. And again, seasonal closures, gates closed until like June time frame. So this is going to be a little bit interesting and I'm really going to stretch this term. But for tonight, I'm going to try to urban stealth camp in the Kimbo. What's going on, everyone? Back with another episode of Stuff and Things. I have spared you all the immense boringness of the drive that I just went on from Denver to Salt Lake City, and I'm here in Salt Lake now. I posted on my story at the border of Wyoming saying, I hope I can do this drive quickly, and a lot of people messaged me because they were offended. They said, hey, Wyoming's not boring, it's beautiful here, there's so much to do, we have these national parks and so on and so forth. And I get that. So I followed up with that story post saying, hey, it's okay to be offended, everyone's offended nowadays, but sorry to break the news to you, but every state has a boring stretch, whether it's just a big chunk of land, a boring drive, whatever it is. Not every state is completely perfect through and through, and I referenced Colorado. I said you could cut off the eastern side of Colorado, like the 2-hour drive in from Kansas. Basically anything east of Denver, we could just chop that off and donate it to Kansas, and it would be perfectly fine. No one would really care. So I just drove one of the windiest highways across the country here, Highway 80 in southern Wyoming, where it's pretty flat, there's not a lot to see. It was snowing, but I finally made it to what I said was going to be my destination. Now today, since we are talking about urban stealthy style camping, I wanted to kind of fill you in on some tips and tricks that I've learned over the years. None of my vehicles have been good for stealth camping. A lot of people, when they really get into it and they want to go completely unnoticed, they'll convert like a stock white van, put some low pro solar on the top, maybe a window here or there, but most likely not. Or maybe they'll set up a truck with a camper in the back and they'll black out the windows. That way you can park that rig wherever society exists, like in a city, in a town, and you can get away sometimes sleeping in your vehicle relatively unnoticed. So I'm gonna give you guys some tips and tricks. I'm gonna break them down into chapters, so if you wanna bounce around, you can find the chapters in the description down below. And the first thing that I'm gonna talk about is something that I just ran into. So I'm in Salt Lake City, it is now 4:30 p.m. and a good tip for urban camping is you want to arrive late and leave early. You don't want to spend a ton of time in these places. You're not like grilling food outside. You're generally staying inside your vehicle and going hopefully unnoticed. So since it is still early here in Utah, the sun is going to be up for quite a while yet, I'm actually going to just push on through towards Lake Tahoe, which is my end destination. And now I'm currently shooting for Reno, Nevada, which was honestly not in the plans for today, but I figured if I'm making a video about stealth camping, I should follow the rules that I'm setting in place. So the first rule, arrive late to wherever you're camping and leave early, or as early as possible. I had 500 miles to go in the beginning of this video. I now have another 500 miles to go. It looks like we have 7 hours and 15 minutes, and that will put me into where I think I'm going to be able to kind of stealth camp at 11:45 at night, which for most people is pretty late. So it'll be under the cover of darkness, which there's probably going to be a parking lot with lights everywhere, but I'm sticking to that rule. I will check in with you guys probably once we reach a destination, unless I get too tired and decide to stop before then. And then we'll dive into some more tips that you should follow if you're going to do something like this yourself. We've made it to our destination. I was not planning on driving that far today, but after a little over 1,000 miles and about 16 hours, I've made it to where I'm going to be urban stealth camping tonight. It's now 11 o'clock Pacific time. I left on mountain time, so it's like midnight my time. Pretty tired. but I can finally sleep now. So for my next tip, when it comes to finding a place to stay, one of the main things is, of course, parking in a safe area. You don't want to park in some really bad, decrepit neighborhood, and generally you're probably going to be best off finding some type of business. So some common spots that I have stayed at in the past. I should also mention that this is not something I do very often anymore, but when I was full-time in my van for like 2.5 years, this was a lot more common. You can stay at places like rest areas on the side of the highway. For those, you can pull in at pretty much any time. For the most part, stay as long as you want and you're not going to be bothered. And then you have restaurants like Cracker Barrel, for an example. They actually have RV parking at a lot of their locations and you can get away with doing it there. You can also go to some Walmart parking lots because it's kind of like a common thing. However, a lot of places across the board have been kind of cracking down on overnight parking. And where I'm staying at tonight is right here in this parking lot. We've got a Ross, some flooring store, I think a grocery store, and then a Planet Fitness, which is open 24 hours, which is nice. One thing you want to keep in mind is that you should really be following the rules. If there is signage posted saying things like no overnight truck parking, you should probably listen to that. And I'm surprised because there are actually quite a few semi-trucks in this parking lot right now. It doesn't really say anything about any kind of like RV or camper. And I also see another camper van kind of parked straight across from me there. So I think I'll be fine here overnight. Safety is also an important aspect here. You don't really want to park in like the darkest back corner, secluded area of the parking lot, because in reality that can kind of make you a target in some ways. I am kind of situated in a corner, however there are lights all around. As you can see, I mean, there's no lights on in the truck and everything is lit up. So I would recommend parking underneath a light sometimes if you are going to camp in a parking lot like I'm about to do. One more quick tip, switch spots. If you're going to be in an area for a while, like right now I'm currently in Reno, Nevada, probably going to be here for the next 2 or 3 days, there's a good chance that I'm not going to stay in this same spot because then it draws attention to you and you could get some knocks in the middle of the night, and that's what we are trying to avoid right now. So park in a safe spot, follow the rules. I gave you some tips on some common spots, and blend in. Now for some of my current downsides. I can't really blend in, and in a van I can just park and then stand up and walk back to my bed. However, I have to get out of the truck. I actually have to move some of my stuff from the cab of the truck into my camper, and I'm not really going to be drawing attention to myself. It's midnight, I'm outside of a gym. It could look like I'm going into the gym. So let me hop out here and kind of get situated. All right, let's do this kind of quickly. We have another camper van over there. We have a truck and some more trucks over here. I'm parked right here underneath these lights. I don't blend in, obviously. It's really hard to blend in with a vehicle and a camper like this, but I'm situated in a way that no one can park on this side, which is nice. You want to make sure that all of your valuables are out of the cab of a setup like this, because obviously not trying to get broken into. And now the other kind of downside to at least my specific setup is I have my C4 swing out, and I absolutely love it for camping and overlanding in my typical type of camping, but when I'm getting into my camper, tailgate's down and that has to be open. So that's another reason why I parked where I did. I can kind of let it overhang. It's not in the way, it's not blocking another parking spot. And this one should be pretty self-explanatory, but don't have any exterior lights on when you're trying to do something like this. Let's go inside. All right, next tip for you guys. Wow, that is bright. Before you turn your lights on inside of a vehicle or camper that you're planning on staying in a public area, before you make it super bright in here, make sure that all of your windows are covered. This goes for any kind of vehicle setup if you're trying to be stealthy. And again, I'm not like super stealth camping right now, but I'm being as stealthy as I can. I have all of my window covers completely closed, that way no one can really tell that there are lights on in here, and hopefully they cannot tell that I'm inside of here either. You may notice that I'm trying to be a little bit quiet, which is another important thing. You don't want to be making a ton of noise, blasting music, you're not camping out in the woods or with a bunch of friends. You're just kind of getting by for the night. So it's a good idea to keep your voice down, listen to music, listen to podcasts. By the way, I just started the Dropping Knowledge podcast again, so if you guys want to listen to my podcast that I finally brought back, you can find a link for that in the description down below. Luckily, I'm right by a highway, and it's just some kind of like white noise for me. It's not going to bother me sleeping tonight, and it is fairly quiet inside of this camper, so shouldn't really be an issue, and that means I could probably talk at a normal volume if I wanted to. I would recommend not having headphones on in a situation like this because you want to be aware of your surroundings. If a car pulls up in front of me or next to me, I want to be able to hear that, whether I'm sleeping or working, whatever I'm doing in here. So you got to stay aware of your surroundings at all times. I'm realizing that I'm making this sound like it's a really dangerous thing, and in reality, it's generally not that dangerous, but it's always good to stay vigilant. I need to get this heater going because I drove through some pretty cold weather all day today. It's about 40 degrees in the camper right now, and it's going to be a low of 32. It's currently 34 degrees outside. Absolutely love this thing. It's going to be nice and warm in here in no time. Now, typically, this is the point in the night where I would cook some dinner, make something to eat, but because it's so late, I'm actually going to skip that tonight. But just for some tips, obviously, if you're going to be cooking or grilling anything inside, which I don't even do inside of my Kimbo, I would recommend keeping it as easy as possible. If I do plan on eating anything tonight, which I might once I'm editing this video, tuna packets. Got cheese in here, got some buns in the pantry over there. Just something quick and easy, like a sandwich. You definitely don't want to be outside just cooking in a parking lot because then it looks and smells like you're camping. And we're trying to be stealthy here. And then when it comes to protection, I'm going to leave that one up to you guys. You already know where I stand on the Second Amendment and carrying pocket knives and having tools with you. That's obviously going to vary from state to state, and you have to be careful when you're crossing state lines with a few of those things, so just something to keep in mind. I'm sure anyone watching these videos probably already has a pretty good idea of what they can do for protection in an environment like this. And now last but certainly not least, what happens if you do get a knock in the middle of the night? I luckily have not experienced this because I've done it for so long and I know all of these kind of tips and tricks that I'm telling you guys. You just have to be smart with it. However, if you do receive a knock, there's a good chance that it would probably be from the police or security, some kind of similar situation like that. In some cases, if you're really not picking your spots properly, it might be like the property owner. And the only thing that I can really say is that when you are woken up in the middle of the night to a knock like that, your heart rate's going to jump and you're probably going to be kind of anxious. So I would just say keep it cool, calm, collected. It's a good idea to sleep in clothing, honestly, like maybe not with pants on, but shorts or sweatpants, t-shirt. That way you're not just opening your door in your underwear in the middle of the night to some stranger or a cop. Obviously, don't jump to your means of protection right away. Leave that stuff easily accessible, but obviously if you have the ability to kind of peek out and see who it might be knocking, do that well before you do anything else. And then when you are talking with whoever may be knocking on your door, obviously just be polite and courteous and respectful, and generally people aren't going to give you a super hard time. At least I couldn't imagine that. If anything, they would probably just say, hey, you can't park here, you gotta leave. And then you find a new spot and start this entire process over again. So that brings me to my favorite part of this video that I've been looking forward to ever since Salt Lake City earlier, but sleep. Try to get to bed and enjoy your night camping in a parking lot. Urban stealth camping. There's really not much more to it than that. It's kind of the crude and not fashionable part of van life and things like that, which a lot of people don't show you, but I show you that stuff on my channel all the time. So hopefully you guys learned some tips and tricks to this video, and the next time that you're in a pinch while you're out traveling on the road, hopefully this gave you some insight on some things that you can do to find a spot to rest your head for the night. I'm freaking exhausted, so that's going to be all for this video. I know it was quick, but if you guys enjoyed it, I'd appreciate it if you left a like. Today is Wednesday, so I'll be in Reno Thursday, Friday, and then Saturday we're going to be heading to Lake Tahoe. So if you guys want to see me do anything in Reno between now and then, let me know. I haven't spent a ton of time in like Reno proper, so maybe you guys can drop some suggestions in the comments down below. Good part about this spot is I can wake up in the morning, go into Planet Fitness, get a workout. I can even shower while I'm there, and then I can start my day kind of fresh like I'm at home. So that's all. If you guys are new here, consider clicking subscribe. I make new videos every single week. As always, thank you for watching. I'll talk to you in the next one.